Hello, welcome back to my channel, and this video is about the embroidery kit that I am selling online. First of all, let me tell you that this video is going to be really long because it is an elaborate, detailed version of each and every stitch. I am starting from how to thread a needle to backing the hoop. So this video will be quite long. I am sorry for that. If I don't do that, maybe many of you who are beginners will not be able to follow what I am saying. So let's begin. The very first stitch that we are going to learn is the running stitch. It is a very simple stitch where you bring the thread out from one point and insert it at a certain length, and this length and the distance are quite calculated, and it is almost similar, or each and every stitch will look very similar, and as I have given these lines, it will be very easy for you to just go through them. The second stitch that we are doing is called as a leaf stitch. This is a traditional leaf stitch method that most of us follow to do a leaf. But in this kit, I will also be explaining how you can do another method of leaf. So this is how we do a traditional stitch where we take the needle in and out alternatively. Sometimes when you are a beginner, you may not be able to do the leaf stitch as I had shown you previously. This is another very easy method that you can follow if you are finding the previous one difficult. Here what we do is we just fill in one side of the leaf first and then fill the other side. This is very easy for you because both the sides of the leaf will look very similar, so you can follow this method also to fill the leaf. This is almost like a slanting satin stitch, but I wouldn't call that. This is just a filling method that I felt very easy to do. The third stitch is called as the woven wheel stitch. So here I have divided the circle into 5 parts. You can do this stitch by dividing the circle in 3 parts or 7 parts, but the most common way of doing it will be dividing a circle into 5 equal parts. After doing that, we stitch along all these lines with a single strand, which means 6 strands. After completing this, we are going to use 12 strands of thread. I mean double of the single strand that we take, and then we go through these lines alternatively, which means you take the thread through one line and then leave the next line and then go through the next one. So it is 1, 3 and 5. We go like that in circles. After completing this, what we do is we take a needle and just fluff the flower. We do this so that the flower looks bouncy. So this is an additional tip that you can follow to make the flower even more real. The fourth stitch is called as the back stitch, and in this stitch, just like the running stitch, there is no gap between the stitches. It is a continuous stitch that goes in circles. You can just keep stitching it without leaving any gaps, and these just follow these lines and this tutorial and you'll get your running stitch done. The fifth stitch is also a leaf stitch. This is a variation of the traditional leaf stitch. This can be called as a fly leaf stitch. So this will give a sort of a texture to the leaf because you have to knot each and every stitch that you make, like how I am showing you. This is an interesting way of making leaf in case you are bored with the traditional leaf stitch. Now on to our sixth stitch, which is called as the lazy daisy stitch. This stitch is nothing but chain stitch in circles. There are two methods by which you can do a chain stitch, but this is by far the easiest method, wherein you bring the needle through one particular point and then insert it very close to the first point and then make a chain. So this will give an interesting floral pattern which is very easy to create. The seventh stitch, which is the whipped back stitch. Whipped back stitch is nothing but making back stitch as your first stitch and then using another thread to just loop it around the back stitch, which you will understand as soon as you see this video. Once you have completed the regular back stitch, use the same needle and thread to just loop around the back stitch, and it will create an interesting pattern for you, which I would prefer for making any kind of stem. Moving on to our eighth stitch, which is the French knot. Most of them don't like this stitch because it is quite hard to get it in the first time. So if you follow my method, it will be very easy for you. What you have to do is take the needle and thread out and then loop the thread around the needle and never leave the thread loose. You can see I am holding the thread with my pointer and thumb finger of my left hand. So if you follow this method, it will be very easy for you to do a French knot. Most of them, what they do, they loop the thread around the needle and then just leave it and just pull it from below. That will create a messy knot. So just remember to not leave that thread till the knot is completed. Hope you are able to understand. Moving on to our ninth stitch, which is called as the stem stitch. As the name suggests, this stitch is mostly used to make stems, but I personally prefer the whipped back stitch. So for the stem stitch, we bring the needle through point A and insert it through point B, and then bring the needle out again through point C, which is between A and B, and we keep repeating the same process. For the second stitch, as you can see, I am bringing it through the same point as point B of the previous stitch. I hope it makes sense. If you just see, you will be able to understand it. Moving to our 10th stitch, which is called as a pistil stitch. The name of this stitch is pistil because it resembles the pistil of a flower. That is why it is called as a pistil stitch. So for this stitch, we don't have to do anything. We have to take the needle out through a point and then make a knot at the end. And this stitch can also be called as long French knot, because ideally what we do is we do a French knot at the end, but it is not short like the regular French knot, it is long. This is called as the pistil stitch, and you can make florals using this stitch. You can do pistils of a flower, etc. Please remember to follow the same method that you use for the French knot. Do not leave the thread before the stitch is completed. As you can see, I am holding the thread with my thumb and pointer finger. 11th stitch, which is called as the blanket stitch. The name blanket stitch is because this stitch is used to reinforce the edge of thick materials like blankets. And this stitch is also called as a cable stitch or a crochet stitch depending on the circumstances. As of now, we will call it as the blanket stitch. This is a very useful stitch, and you can use it to close the back side of your hoop. I have an entire video of how you can back your hoop or cover the back side of your hoop, and I shall leave the link in the description. Please do check that out. So this stitch will look like the number 7, and it's a very easy stitch and a very useful stitch for sewing together the edges of a lot of materials. Twelfth stitch, the last and the final stitch in this embroidery kit, is the feather stitch. Now the feather stitch is very common to the fly stitch, but please remember that both are different stitches. For the feather stitch, we have 4 lines and we keep alternating this, and it comes in a particular pattern, and if you add some kind of a floral at the end of each stitch, it will look like a flower vine. That will give a pattern to your embroidery, but I am sticking to the basic of what the stitch is, which is the feather stitch alone. I am not going to do the florals here. So if you just follow this video or the tutorial, you will be able to do the stitch very easily. You have to just keep on alternating the stitches to the left and right. This is for those who don't know how to knot the thread behind the hoop. So you can just follow this method for every stitch and learn. Moving on to closing the back side of the hoop. So initially what you have to do is you have to take the back side and then use a needle and just keep on inserting through the front and back of the cloth, as I am showing you in alternative way. You can call this as a running stitch if you want, and this is how you just completely stitch the corners through the ends of the excess cloth that you have in the hoop. You have to stitch like this around the hoop till you reach the starting point. And once you've reached the starting point, what you do is you pull both the threads together and make knots. So see to it that you're putting 2 knots so that it does not open up. Once that is done, as I've told you, there are many methods to back the hoop or cover the back side of the hoop. Please refer the description if you want to see other methods. Here I am making it very simple for you. I've attached a foam sheet along with the kit. You just have to take the glue, apply it to the ends of the hoop, and then stick the foam sheet to it, and maybe keep a weight on top of it so that you cannot hold it for a very long time. So better keep a weight on top of the hoop and let it stick together. Leave a small weight on top of this so that both the hoop and the foam sheets stick together well. And after that, if you see there are excess foam sheets on the sides of the hoop, you can just take a scissor and just trim it off. Please remember to cut off the excess foam only after the hoop is completely dry and not before that. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're interested to buy this kit which will have everything inside that you need to create this, please send me a message on my Instagram. I will leave the link of the Instagram in the description. This way you can create your own embroidery.